afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us on KTN Newsdesk on the 7th day of April 2016. My name is Akisa Wandera. Now, the tribunal investigating the 200 million shilling bribery claims against suspended Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoi began its hearing in public today. Chairman Sharad Rao had earlier indicated that the media and the public will not be allowed in the hearing because the judge opted to be tried in camera. Tunoi, however, changed his mind. According to the tribunal's rules of procedure published recently, the hearing ought to be in private unless the judge whose conduct is subject of investigations chooses to have a public hearing. The rules also provide the judge with right to be present during all the proceedings that relate to him and shall be entitled to legal representation by a counsel. Evidence before the tribunal may be presented in the form of memoranda, affidavit or other documentation, and the tribunal shall be entitled to receive such documents and use the contents in forming its opinion. The tribunal sitting was, however, adjourned until Tuesday next week. And on the same, we now want to join our reporter, Michelle Ngele, who was at the tribunal sitting. Michelle, why has the tribunal adjourned just as they started sitting today?
Good afternoon, Akisa. Well, the tribunal today, in its first public sitting, had to adjourn because Justice Tunoi was needed at the Court of Appeal, where he is challenging his retirement age. And that case, they sought adjournment of the retirement age case at the Court of Appeal yesterday. But his lawyers say that that appeal application for adjournment had been denied by the Court of Appeal. Important to note, Akisa, is that lawyers at the Court of Appeal feel that the tribunal to investigate the conduct against Justice Tunoi is inferior to the Court of Appeal, and so they feel that they should not have to adjourn their hearings just to make time and to accommodate the tribunal that is investigating conduct against Tunoi. And the tribunal today also had to be adjourned because while Tunoi was at the tribunal, his lawyer Fred Ngatia was at the Court of Appeal conducting the case there, and it is a conflict of interest they have mentioned for Tunoi to have to juggle between both the retirement age case at the Court of Appeal as well as the tribunal investigating his conduct. And following that, Tunoi is now requesting that his retirement age case at the Court of Appeal be discontinued until the tribunal's hearings come to an end in about 3 weeks' time. He said that both cases should not run concurrently, and this is something that is being discussed by members of the tribunal as well as the Court of Appeal. Akisa.
Now, Michelle, does this particular situation slow down the work of the tribunal, given they have barely 3 weeks to finish their work?
Well, Akisa, this is an interesting story because the fact that Tunoi wants the case at the Court of Appeal to be discontinued just shows how strong his resolve is to clear his name of the bribery allegations against him. Because should the Court of Appeal continue with its case, and should it within the 3 weeks that the tribunal is expected to work and of the allegations against him?
Thank you very much. That is a very interesting scenario being given to us there by our reporter Michelle Ngele, who's joining us from the City Centre studios, where Justice Philip Tunoi has two cases running concurrently and is asking for the retirement age case at the Court of Appeal to be suspended for a while and give time for the tribunal to do its work. Of course, Justice Tunoi is confident of being declared innocent at the end of it all. But let's now take a look at a clip that shows some of the deliberations that took place during the first day of sitting for the tribunal with Justice Philip Tunoi.
The judge and his team have this unfortunate challenging situation where I have to handle both situations. I've been instructed to kindly request that the hearing, which was to continue today, be adjourned to a later date.
The civil appeal is determined otherwise, and I know there is a lot of arguments both sides. Then we stand the risk of the tribunal being rendered superfluous. That is what I am now fighting against, because serious allegations were made before me, against me. Those allegations are the subject of ventilation before this tribunal, and I think it is time for me to clear my name first, so that if the civil appeal goes whichever way, then the truth will have been determined by
yes, otherwise you lose.
Now to a story that continues to elicit a lot of reaction. Chase Bank has joined the growing list of banks that have been placed under receivership by the central bank following a spate of panic withdrawals. In a statement, the banking regulator says the bank will be under receivership for 12 months following what the CBK considers to be unsafe financial conditions. Hundreds of customers had gone to the bank on Wednesday to withdraw their money as reports circulated the social media that the bank would close soon. On Wednesday, CBK Governor Dr. Patrick Njoroge put a brave face clarifying that they are malicious rumors that could be harmful to the banking industry. The closure of the bank comes barely a day after Group Chairman Zafrullah Khan and Group Managing Director Duncan Kabui quit after restating the bank's financial performance.
Nikapata kweli imefungwa. Sasa sijui tutapata pesa zetu aje, maana ni pesa ya biashara na ni pesa zetu ambayo tunatumia kila siku, tunaweka na tunatoa, tunaweka na tunatoa.
Niko na school fees, niko na mtoto wa form 3, niko na wengine anaingia form 1 next year, na pesa zangu zile deposit zangu ningesaidia. Sasa sina hata vision, siona hata mbele itakuwa namna gani wala nyuma itakuwa namna gani. I don't know the reaction of the family or the reaction of the children, because sababu tayari nalipa school fees.
Mimi mwenyewe nilicall Chase Bank and I talked to the customer care. Wakaniambia kuwa mimi kama mfanyabiashara I need not to be worried. Pesa yangu iko safe na nitaipata. So
opportunity to completely, totally and utterly thank the people of Africa, the governments of Africa, the African Union, for their very, very strong position and very well articulated position in support of Kenya with regards to the ongoing cases at the ICC that have seen us succeed and be able to move forward. I thank you for that support, and I take this opportunity to promise you that Kenya, under my leadership, will partner with each and every one of you to ensure that we achieve the African agenda. You can count on Kenya just as much as Kenya has been able to count on you. May God bless you, and may God bless the African continent. Thank you very much.
The news of the Chase Bank being placed under receivership has elicited a lot of reaction on the social media and outside. And joining us now in the studio is Joy Doreen Bira, our business anchor, to just give us paint a picture for us on what it really means for a bank to be placed under receivership.
All right, thanks, Akisa. And, a lot is happening in the banking industry right now. The appointed governor, that is Patrick Njoroge, is really taking it up to him to make sure he cleans up the banking industry. But when a bank is put under receivership, it means that they cannot meet their financial obligations. So what happens is that the regulator in this case, which is Central Bank of Kenya, appoints a receiver. And when they appoint a receiver, the receiver is now takes over the management of the assets of a financial institution or Chase Bank in this case. And now that it has been placed under receivership for 12 months, it means that for the next 12 months, the Kenya Depositors and Insurers Corporation is going to handle all the asset management for Chase Bank. Now, the reasons why they were actually placed under receivership were because of issues around liquidity and also bad debt. And so what this means is that over the next 12 months, KDIC, that is the Kenya Depositors and Insurers Corporation, is going to determine whether or not they should restructure the company or the bank or just sell off its assets and move on with their lives, pay off the shareholders. And, well, when banks are placed under receivership, it puts the depositors in a bad place, that is the account holders in a bad place, because half the time you're not able to access your money from the ATM or from the bank over the counter. And so it means that until the Central Bank of Kenya through KDIC appoint other banks in this case, I'll give an example of when Imperial Bank was placed under receivership. They did appoint KCB and Diamond Trust Bank to, issue out the money to the depositors of Imperial Bank. So that's what happens when banks are placed under receivership.
Right. So now, where does this leave the account holders? We have seen a story from Kisumu, of course, the customers complaining, the consumers. What next for them?
Well, for now, they just have to wait, because now if they cannot access their money, they just have to wait for the Central Bank and the Kenya Depositors and Insurers Corporation to either say this and this bank that are already operational or other commercial banks are going to be able to give out the money to all the depositors. Now, that means that you have to have a certain amount of money for you to be able to withdraw your money or even have access to your money. Now, they say Chase Bank has about over 1,000 employees. They're all now not going to be doing much because the bank is under receivership, and that applies as well to the people who have accounts with the bank. And usually when we're looking at the authority that KDIC has right now, if they actually determine that Chase Bank cannot be able to move on with its financial obligations, then they could sell off its assets, and therefore selling off its assets means that the shareholders themselves are not going to be able to receive any of that money until the bad date that Chase Bank owes is paid. That includes paying off the account holders.
Doreen, before I let you go, what does it say about the Kenyan banking sector? Are we stable?
Well, it does say quite a lot, because right now we're seeing this is the third bank in about 9 months that has been placed under receivership. And so we're looking at the fact that, the banking industry in Kenya is very vibrant. We have about, we've had about 44 banks. And since Dubai Bank and Imperial Bank were placed under receivership, we're left with 42 banks. Now that Chase has been placed under receivership, we're having 41 banks. Well, it's a good thing for us to have financial inclusion and having access to all these financial products and services. But then now it means that much of the banking industry is very unregulated. And this means that we're having a lot of bad books, books being doctored. Remember, this has been a season of banks releasing their 2015 results, and many of them have been publishing them in the press. Actually, Chase Bank had to republish some of its results that was in yesterday's dailies because of what they saw coming, that the CBK was, seeing a bit of questionable results, comparing what was in the press, what was sent to the NSC as audited results, and what exactly they received. So that actually does show there's quite a bit of questions being raised about the banking industry and how exactly it is performing. But to put that into perspective for us, we're going to be speaking to Habil Olaka, who is the Chief Executive Officer from the Kenya Bankers Association. He's going to be speaking to us at 2 p.m. That is going to be during the Business Today show.
Wow, thank you very much. Of course, so that is a show you don't want to miss to get a better understanding of what really is happening in the Kenyan banking sector. That was Doreen Bira, our business anchor, just joining us to put this issue of the Chase Bank and the banking sector as a whole into perspective. Now, let us now get to stories on the international front.